Morning, Helen. Thanks for joining the Life
Morning.
Exchange group today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. And thank you for inviting me on. I'm very
Oh,
excited to be
no,
here.
I'm really excited for you to be here too. So you are going to talk to the Life Exchange group today about supporting the connection between parents and children, particularly aimed around the time of lockdown, where the time together is a lot more intense, and often parents are working from home whilst trying to home study with one or more children. So it's pretty full on right
Really
now.
full on.
Yeah, really full on. So I'm just going to introduce the group to you and talk a little bit about
Okay.
your experience. So you started working as a school teacher, and although
Yeah.
you were really passionate about education, you found that this wasn't the direction that you wanted to go in.
Yeah.
So it was more the formality of
Mhm.
teaching which didn't resonate with you fully. So not knowing what you wanted to do, you took a very exciting year out and
I did.
you hitched around Africa, which is amazing. And during this time, you helped set up a preschool for bush children in the Kalahari Desert, which was certainly an adventure and an eye-opener for you.
It was
Yeah,
fabulous
yeah,
experience.
amazing. Yeah. And you experience the power and the importance of play and touch in the
Mhm.
community. Um, and this community lived together with ease in nature and despite the harsh conditions, which was a big
Mhm.
eye opener for you and a turnaround of how you have been learning previously.
Yeah.
So after you returned to the UK, you ran a nursery where play and touch were paramount, and you brought in what you'd learned previously.
Yeah.
You then went on to work at Great Ormond Street Hospital, where you used therapeutic play and massage to support the children, and you really felt that this made a difference. And from
Mhm.
here, you went on to counselling and health coaching. You were a systemic counsellor, an NLP practitioner, and you're currently training in human givens therapy, which is a
Yeah.
wonderful, gentle, and therapeutic, effective form of counselling, suitable for anyone seeking help with mental health issues, including
Yeah.
depression, anxiety, phobias, trauma, and stress. Which sounds
Yeah.
amazing. I hadn't
It
heard of
is.
that one before,
It's
actually.
lovely. It's really fabulous. It's
Mm,
all based on science and or it's very evidence based and very brief and solution focused. So people really feel a difference after their first session, and it's quite brief. You don't
that's
go round
good.
and round old stuff. We
Which is
hear it
what
and then
you
we move on.
want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because often it's just, these things are too painful for people to want to keep going
Yeah.
over and over, isn't it? So this sounds
Mhm.
perfect. So you are qualified in integration nutritional health coach, systemic counsellor, as we mentioned, NLP, therapeutic play specialist, health and wellbeing cognitive behavioural coach. Also, you have certificates in emotional eating psychology, stress management in the workplace, and also something that we spoke about last week, and that you use stories
Mm.
to work with people as a way to healing, and you've got a masterclass in therapeutic storytelling. Also, you use guided imagery and visualization for therapeutic change, um, how to lift depression in practical skills, effective pain management, which is psychology of techniques for reducing persistent pain, many things, and anxiety and learning, how to boost students' abilities. You've worked with many people in different age groups, from babies to elderly pensioners, and your mission is to bring back simple touch and human connection to society wherever you can, whether it's in hospitals, hospices, therapy centres, schools, offices, and training centres. Wow. So you've worked with, yeah, many different areas and many different people. But today we're going to talk primarily about supporting parents at this time, and how they can support themselves and their children in moving through this time, because we're in this very intense time where everyone is in the home. I would imagine that emotions are very heightened, and it's trying to find that way of finding peace, isn't it, with parents and
Absolutely.
children. So I guess talking firstly about parents, and for them to find that self-compassion with
Yeah.
themselves to deal with this time, maybe a good place to start.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've got two teenage boys. Well, they're not. They're at university, so they're end of teenage time, and
Yeah.
they've just come back. And even that's not that easy, because it's not what we had expected and thought was going to happen. So for parents with younger children, you know, this is so out of anybody's imagination that this was ever going to happen, and the stress is huge. And parents, just, you know, just be kind to yourselves. That this is an extraordinary, extraordinary time. So as much compassion as you can have in yourself, and just know that you're doing your best, and that's enough. And you know, I just think there's this overwhelming feeling of not doing your work well enough, not being a good enough parent, being irritated, being, you know, so it's a real time to just lose some standards. I think, you know, it doesn't matter that the laundry's not done today, it's good enough, and that the house hasn't been cleaned, it's good enough. And what's really, really important is to look after yourself, so that you can, with compassion, really support the family together. Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's a huge amount of pressure, isn't it? And
Massive.
I think that's such a good point, to sit with yourself and just be appreciative that you've got through this far, and how well you've done
Yes,
to achieve what
absolutely,
you've
already.
achieved. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and I guess it's you know, it's acknowledging the stress that you can be in some days as well, isn't it?
Yeah, totally, totally. It's acknowledging it to yourself. And I think, and it's letting the children see. So the biggest thing we can do right now is not forget, obviously they need to do their schoolwork and things, but that will come somehow, that will come. But I think if we can use this time as project calmness, project how to cope, how to be resilient, and remain calm with some hope amidst chaos, whilst also acknowledging and dealing with the anxiety, not pretending it's not there. And if we can give those skills to children, to accept their feelings, to find ways through it, to learn how to self-soothe, I think we will have done, as parents, an incredible job and service. You know, emotional intelligence is key for anything, and all through life we're going to meet things that we never thought were going to happen. So if we have the skills to be able to understand our feelings, to work with them, to calm them down, and to think creatively, and travel hopefully, and be able to communicate, wow, what a generation we're going to create. So
yeah, exactly. And so if parents are in a situation and emotions are heightened, and they may be teaching, or trying to do the homeschooling, or they're just in a general day-to-day interaction, how would you feel is a good way to sort of calm a situation if it's got heightened?
if it's got heightened, if you're already in that heightened state, it's really important to take a break, just step away from it, because it's just going to escalate. So one of the real key things to do is to learn how to self-soothe it back down, and to learn what's happening. So I often teach, can I teach the hand model of how the brain
Yes.
works and
Yeah, sure.
stress? But because any child I've even taught this to 5-year-olds and they've got it. So any child above, and it just helps normalize it. So if we think that so the hand's going to be the brain. So this is the brain stem going down the spine, and you've got the two systems. You've got the relaxation system and the response system, the parasympathetic and sympathetic, and the stress system. So you've got those two nerves. And then you've got the brain. So it's divided into three parts very crudely. So we've got the reptilian brain, which was the first brain in evolution. And that brain is purely about movements. It's about movement of limbs, movement of muscles, movement of oxygen, blood, nutrients, and it's also about reproduction. Then the next brain to develop, so that's reptilian. Then we get the mammalian brain, that we're also known as the limbic brain. So that's the next brain. And that's all about emotions and social connection and keeps us together. And it's also got what's known as the amygdala in there. So this is the amygdala, and it's like our not very bright security guard. So it looks for threat all the time. And its whole point is to keep us safe. And then on top of that, humans and primates, we've got the cortex, and then we've got the prefrontal cortex. And that's all the stuff that makes us human, the big, complex ability to think, to future, to think about the future, to solve problems, creativity, imagination, all those bits and pieces are in here. And so what happens when we get stressed, the amygdala, the information is just data, it goes into the brain, and the amygdala gets a few seconds before the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala works out if we're under threat. So it used to be just that the tiger was coming to get us, but now we've got another email, we haven't done our work in time, the house is getting a mess, and every time we get one of those, we go, oh, and we go a little bit offline. And what happens is when you're really stressed, the prefrontal cortex goes offline because we can't think. Thinking slows us down. So if we were going to be running from a tiger, we can't stand there and think, oh, I wonder if that's male or female. I wonder if I've got time for a selfie. I wonder if that's the one that's about to be extinct, will be dead. So we've been made so that we don't think when we're under stress. So we just react with our emotions to keep us safe. And that's fine if we're running away, and then we get all the physiological stress responses. But unfortunately, most of the time, we're not running away from anything. So every time we get stressed, we go a little bit and a little bit. And then sometimes it's not that it's the most stressful thing, but it's the last thing that we can cope with. And we go, oh, and we flip our lids and we go offline and we just act purely on emotions. And I'm sure we've all done things we thought, gosh, why on earth did I do that? Mm. And it was because our prefrontal cortex that thinks creatively and problem solve had gone offline. Mm. So the quickest way to get that back down so we can think creatively and problem solve and self-soothe is through the breath. Because the breath is information to the body. So when we're stressed, we go, oh, and we don't notice it, but we shallow breathe. And then when we get back to safety, we go, and that big sigh out, that's information for the body that we're safe. So way before we ever had language, that was how our body knew. So before we have thoughts, we had these ways of communicating to ourselves that we were safe or we were in danger, and it's through the breath. So we can, every time we feel a little bit stressed, we can just do some deep belly breathing. So we breathe into the belly expands out, and then when we breathe out, the longer it goes in. And that creates a physiological response, and it stimulates the relaxation response, the parasympathetic nervous system. And so then the brain, more blood and oxygen goes to this prefrontal cortex, and it can get back online.
So that's in through the nose, out through the mouth?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. People find their own way, but the out breath needs to be longer than the in breath.
Okay.
So you breathe in, slow it down, and the belly goes out. So I call it, with children, we make paper boats, and we lie down, and we call it our boat belly breath breathing. So they lie down, they make these paper boats, and then on the in breath, the tummy goes up, so they make the waves, and on the out breath, the boats go down.
And for how many times, just until you can see that there's calmness?
Yeah, but it comes really quickly. So even 6 to 10 breaths can make a massive difference. So that's, and what you can do is, what I do is I habit stack it. So throughout the day, I'll be doing that. Every time mine's with the kettle. So every time I put the kettle on, I do instead of multitasking, I just do 6 or 8 of those breaths. So I know, and when I get up, when I do my teeth, and when I do the kettle, and when I turn my PC on. So I know throughout the day. So what's happening, that's what resilience is. Throughout the day, I'm coming back down so that I'm not getting here, and then going to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly, and that's what we need to do. We need to go into ourselves regularly throughout the day, check in how we are, and just take some breathing. And we can role model that to the children. We can say to the children, right, remind me every time I put the kettle on, make sure that I do my breathing, or every time I say goodnight to you, we're going to do some lovely breathing, 6 lovely breaths before we have our story or say goodnight, and get them involved doing it too. And then you can say, you know, if you do get angry, you can say, gosh, you know, I flipped my lid, didn't I? Or you flip your lid, or you need time out. And then we can apologize, and we can say, you know, I'm really sorry, that I wish that hadn't happened. I wish I had, whatever it was, said this calmly, or advised you to do that, or stopped and helped you beforehand. And I didn't want to make you feel bad. It's not you, it's how I'm feeling. So if we can own our feelings, otherwise children internalize all these microaggressions, they internalize it, and in the end they feel bad about themselves, and that's where it all goes wrong.
I like that, because you're showing them how to behave. So it's not only are you calming them down, but you're showing them how you're going to go about righting yourself in that situation.
Absolutely.
and teaching how you're doing that. So that's really important. And the breathing's for everyone. I'm going to start that with the kettle today as well. Yeah. I like that. And also, I guess it's explaining that it's okay to sort of, we all have set standards, don't we? And it's okay to drop those standards, and this is how I write myself. So, and it's okay to drop standards.
Yeah, absolutely. And that emotions are okay. You know, sometimes when I work with the children, we make a weather chart, and then so quite often, obviously, you know, the rain will be sadness, and the sunshine, happiness, and the rainbow, hope, and the clouds, thunder, anger, and lightning. For some is excitement, for others it's shards of anxiety. But then we talk about how emotions, you know, they come and go, and they're so natural, and we can talk about them and let them go instead of letting them have to sit inside. And when children feel that they can't say what their emotion is, they'll stop sharing it, and then it just gets stuck, and they feel they can't. So as a parent, we have to really role model that we have these emotions too, and that they're okay, even though they're not comfortable, but that they pass, and lose the attachment to them. And it's very normal to feel anxious, but it will pass, and remember times when it has in the past. And just like whether we're not in control, but we can respond the best we can, and acknowledge them, and then allow them, and share them, and talk about them.
Thank
not
you.
Fix them.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? When we kind of go in for trying to fix all the time, when sometimes,
and as parents we so want to, because we just want to help our kids. So when, for instance, you know, they say, I wish we could go to the park for the 20th time, and you just say, well, you know we can't, and it's because we feel helpless, really, that we say, you know, but if we could just say, I hear that you're really missing the park, you know, tell me more, what is it particularly you're missing about? And just let them be heard. And that's all they need. Every human being, that's their biggest yearning, is just to be heard.
Yeah, quite.
And then it dissolves it away.
So if we're looking at strategies, I know that you mentioned about creating 20 minutes between the parent and the child.
Yeah, if they can do that. So what's really helpful is to set aside a time for to be with your child, that the child knows is going to happen daily. And you can, you know, if you don't have long, you can literally set an egg timer, and for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, but it's your special time. And if you really honor it, the child will honor it too. So during that time, if the doorbell goes, you don't even answer it. You know, it's their time, no phones or anything. It's complete, utter time to be present and do something together. And it's a real time saver in the long term, because then all the time through the day when the children are saying, oh, can I do this, can I do this, you can say, great idea, we'll do that, save that, we'll do that in our special time. And when children know they've got that, they're very, very accepting. They understand that you have other things too, but they just need to know that that time is going to come. So it's a really great thing if you can do it. And I know as a mother, it always surprised me that on the days I remembered to do something like that, I got so much more time back. It's the whole thing of what you give, you get back more. And it's so true if you do something like that as well with your children. Give them some real quality time and you get back loads more time for yourself.
I like that. And we also spoke about the vase.
Yes. So, and this was something I heard, but I thought it was such a great idea that we've actually done it as well. So just get a big glass bowl or a glass vase so you can see in it. And then every time you say, the child says something like, or you say something like, oh, I wish I could go and see Nanny. I wish I could go to the ice cream shop. I wish I could go to the play park. Then we write it down on a card, just a white piece of card, and put it in a pot and then in the vase. And then when it happens, and lockdown eases or goes away, we can take it in turns and we can all have our wish list and really tick it off and do it with huge appreciation and, you know, really start to appreciate those things again. And it shows the child as well that this will happen. This is not going to be forever. And we will be taking them out as well.
Makes it a little bit real, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yes, I like that. Might do that as well. So we were talking about, you were saying about the amount of times a child hears no, and which was a lot more than I thought. And then also, you know, accepting this and accepting feelings that they'll move on.
Yeah. So children, a study showed that young children hear the word no 400 times a day. And I bet it's a whole load more now. And it's, so how we get around that is really difficult. But, you know, what we really need to be conscious of is putting in the praise when we can and the gratitude when we can and being very, very specific. So, you know, hearing no all the time just knocks your self-esteem. So it's about building your self-esteem. So, you know, I really like it, like the way you've used those colors. So being very specific. I really like how you came when I called you today. I really like how you've tidied that corner of your bedroom, or how you made half your bed this morning is great. So just really anything at all, just turning what you can into praise, but being realistic, you know, not saying global things like, oh, you're the best drawer in the world. They know that's not true. And so they just almost take it as a negative thing that it's meaningless. So finding the little things, and then the acts of kindness, because kindness builds self-esteem. If you feel you've been kind, you feel good about yourself. So giving them things that they can do and then saying, that's so kind. So even if you have to prep it in, and kindness is like a muscle and it's infectious and it inspires, because children, they're missing their contact with their friends and they get a huge self-esteem from their friends. With their friends, they can be funny, they can be kind, they can help them with their homework, they can you know, protect them from bullies, they can be good team players, and all this chances of learning who you are through socializing has gone, and all this positive feedback they get from their peers. So somehow keeping them connected with their friends and their peers and recognizing all their strengths when they don't really feel like strengths in the family situation, but they are massive.
Yeah.
Has to really, we've got, you know, it's our job to sort of feed back and reflect back all they are.
Yeah. And they need the connection as
massively
much as anybody. So it's encouraging. Yeah. So we were, so we spoke about the belly breathing. And I guess there's looking at aspects of for the parents try and find time for themselves as well. So which I guess comes into the beginning topic, but just to reiterate that it's important for a parent to have that time.
Absolutely. and how it's incredibly hard right now. But you know, we've got 9 emotional needs, and privacy is one of them. Connection is one, and privacy is one. And we're like amoebas. We have to connect, and we have to go into ourselves. We have to connect and go into ourselves, and that's so vitally important. So again, owning it somehow. If you can get your child safe, and screen time, you know, we just got to be a little bit more relaxed about that. And so anything we can do to give ourselves some time, but then take it without any guilt, and just say, this is my and again, you're mirroring that we all need, or role modeling that it's important to take time for yourself and some self-care, and making sure they're safe, but that they will, you know, children will honor it if they feel honored. So it's possible, it really is. Although, you know, with all the demands, it's even harder, but again, it's going to keep going. It's vital. So
to find your way.
Out of steam if we don't take those moments out. If it's a 20-minute bath or a 10-minute sit and stare with a cup of tea out a window, or it doesn't have to be long, but if you really notice it, it can really nourish and feed you.
So difficult. Okay, so we spoke about if the parent was feeling angry, and the 4 minutes.
Yeah. So one thing that I've heard some parents do that we spoke about, and they literally will say, I'm feeling so stressed and so mad, I need to scream. And I'm going to go and scream in my bedroom. And it's nothing frightening. It's just me feeling like I need to scream. And so they'll go, you know, or even in a rage, and then they can say to the child, I'm going to scream for 4 minutes. And that's an awful long time. So they come out of the room, and the child can time them and say, that's not 4 minutes. You know, go back into the child's actually involved in helping them safely let off their steam. And again, you know, it's great role modeling, and you can almost make it into a game. And then you can let the child, you know, man, you sound like you need to go and scream. Okay, how many minutes do you want? And make it permissible to make this noise and get this energy out, because we're, you know, particularly children, we're massively physical, and we've got, you know, we're in little houses, and it's incredibly difficult. So using our voice and expression is a really good way to do, you know, okay, if the parent doesn't want to be heard, they can scream into a pillow instead. But it's really vital that we allow these things and get them out, and can make it safe, so it's not scary for the child. I think we have to share what's going on, but be mindful that things can appear scary to the child. So again, when we share our feelings, we could all sit round and in a circle once a week, and for 2 minutes just say how we're feeling, or how's the week been. And if you do it with a wooden spoon or something, nobody else is allowed to talk whilst you have that. And then afterwards, nobody's allowed to fix it. They can, if you'd like, you can do it where you reflect back and say, wow, it sounds like you feel da 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 da. Is that about right? And they can just say yes or no, and pass it around. And then the parents do it too, but, you know, mindfully. So if they're feeling really anxious that they haven't made enough money and they're going to lose their house, I wouldn't put that in, but I'd say, you know, I'm really struggling to feel like I'm being a good parent to you and doing my work well. And so owning it in a safe way, but still talking about it, so children know what's going on without having to necessarily know it.
Well, I guess with the screaming as well, you could kind of talk about it beforehand and set it up with humour, and just say,
absolutely, do it in a safe time before it happens, and then just and make a joke of it and explain it and all the rest of it. That's great. I mean, you can literally sit and make a family chart of strategies, future strategies for what we're going to do. We're going to breathe, we're going to have our screaming moments when we need it, and somebody's going to time us, you know, we're going to do circle time, we're going to have our 20 minutes, whichever ones feel like.
And in that circle you can say, how do you feel about this? Let's try and do some things to let off steam. How do you feel about screaming? And, you know, just, I guess, chat it out.
Absolutely. Yes.
Such good. Thank you, Helen. That's been amazing today. And there's so many tips in there that
Oh, I hope so.
people can consider and work out what's right for them. And I just really appreciate you spending the time with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, and gotta love all you parents and all you children, and just keep doing your best and believing your hope and being kind to each other, because that's the biggest thing we can do amongst anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I'll talk to you soon, Helen, and thanks so much for coming today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.